On this episode, we talk about music, concert etiquette, and the mastery of self with a guy that's hip to all three. His name is Grant, and he's also the first person to ask me more questions than I do on my own podcast. Grant, like me, grew up in a fairly conservative home with lots of structure and a solid foundation. But some of us were meant to have big failures with even bigger rewards, an evolution that you can't hold back because it was who we were meant to be. He's embraced it all, and I can personally relate. We also discussed the hypothetical scenario of Tom Hanks murdering someone, and then the idea that we should let him off because, well, he's Tom Hanks. Let's jump in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to a Moderately Good podcast. We are back again, and I'm not going to waste any time. Joe Andrade Media, camera guy, does all my camera work. Jason at Wish Pocket. These are all on Instagram, by the way. Jason at Wish Pocket does all my audio. No Names Originals. That's my guy, Jaron. Support local artists in North Carolina. And last but not least, my guy, Mo. He has a Go Bubble app, and if you use the promo code Go Moderately, you get a discount. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. And if you're following me on Spotify or Apple Podcast, follow, subscribe on there too. That would be awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Everybody, welcome. I am good friends with his brother, Grant. Well, he's Grant. I'm good friends with his brother, Jeff. But Grant, say what's up.
How's it going, man?
Good.
I appreciate this. This is fun.
This is
kind
fun.
of introspection, but not just me. We're getting to talk like this. That's cool.
Yeah, I definitely would say when you came in, the conversation just, it almost as you step in the door started like flowing, you know what I mean? So that's kind of cool. So before we get started, do you have like any social media? I know you said you have a YouTube channel, but like all your social media shout outs, where they can find you, and just kind of what you do for a living real quick.
Well, I put some... I think I mentioned that I like to go to concerts, and when I do, I get the clips, and I want them mostly for myself, but I also want them out in the world for someone who likes Robert Cray or Morrissey, or I go to the Kennedy Center in the Washington, D.C. area, and if I've quit doing that because that's actually a no-no, and I didn't realize it. But
you're not supposed to record?
No, but one time I got a pianist. I just happened to be at this great vantage on the aisle, about 6 rows up behind the pianist's right shoulder. So I can't say that he's a Polish concert pianist. And I all of a sudden realized I'm seeing his finger work like no one else in the room can. And so I put a phone down here and then was able to crop later. I didn't have to adjust. I was able to adjust in edit. And I got a clip of this guy, and it got about 1,000 views because I was thrilled to be sharing that with his fans. Well, after about 1,000, his management came up and complained to YouTube and zapped the clip. But otherwise, you can go to my channel, and the Eagles, and if there's a snip, I want other people to get a feel for what it, if they're going to go see Robert Cray, good act. This is what he looks like live.
Yeah. Okay, so we were kind of talking before. I feel like you have this, when I go to concerts, there's 2 things I really notice a lot of times at concerts is 1, the concert, and then 2, everybody holding up their phones recording the concert.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I like going to concerts to watch the concert myself, right? But in us talking before, like you have this really great way of kind of balancing the 2, recording just enough to get like part of the song, right? Or I get part of the clip and then enjoying it. And then another song, you get a little bit, or you talking about like holding your camera down and you're watching it, but you're not paying attention to your phone, right? I'm assuming that's a pretty big deal to you, right?
Very.
Because you want to be present.
I do want to be present, but Jeff, and I was standing next to Jeff Exactly. And I mean, it was to the day last year, December 30th, that we went to a Mavericks concert at Green Hall. And I told him, Jeff, just be aware, I'm going to be using my phone to capture some of this. And he rolled his eyes, as he quite reasonably should have, like, give me a break. Well, you do you. Okay, if that's the way you... It's entirely reasonable. And I get aggravated at people who are doing the same thing I am at concerts, but when they do it a certain way, I don't have my phone in my pocket.
Hold
But
tight.
that-
I'll grab
well,
you. I'll grab you a prop phone. Here, there's a prop phone.
Okay. This is what I see at shows that I hate. Okay. You're the act,
Okay.
and I'm watching it, and they've got the drink in this hand, and they're going like this. Woohoo! Hoo! Hoo! And they're doing this. Oh, yay! I don't know what they're taking home. Now they are, getting this phone in everybody's face, and it's just weird. But they're taking their concentrate, because I don't know what video they're going to come away with.
They're being, I would say they're being distracting
Well, and they also want to
and not being present.
let their YouTube friends know. But I hope to goodness they don't put this on YouTube, because it just looks silly. And they also do, if they do some of these things, they have the little artist as a pinhead on the stage. So that's nothing. Well, I am the guy that's probably aggravating to some people around me, because I go like this, lock in on the dude, get some good framing. I take it home and edit it and color balance and adjust the audio and crop the beginning and end and assemble 4 or 5 clips. And I have a memento that is an entirely, so I came back from that Mavericks show exactly this time last year and put together, I think, a 20-minute clip that had pieces of 10 or 15 songs and a few shots of my brothers and the people around us. And I went to the back and got a feel for the room. And how many times has Jeff, who watched me do that, has he watched? Maybe 10, 20 times. That clip for us is a touchstone, not just a memory, but we all love the music that came from there. And it has taken us back to that show every time we've watched it. That, to me, is the videos.
Well, and I really think that the really good part about it, there's 2 things that I really take away. One, you're making a highlight video. It's not full-blown versions. We're not recording like Stairway to Heaven the whole time they're playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just like, and I was just curious. So if you went to we'll say a 2-hour concert from when you get there to when you leave, like after everybody's left kind of thing, right? Because you're catching footage maybe before the concert starts, right? How much time do you really realistically spend like recording to get like 20 minutes?
30.
Yeah. So out of the whole time you're there, it's just like 30 minutes of your life, and then you're being present, enjoying the concert the rest of the time. I think that's a great for the.
Oh no, I was I can do this.
I know,
I'm present for that too.
Sure.
But what if I was present? What if I said, I'm going to have a spiritual moment at this show? Screw the recording. It's going in the pocket. I'm going to focus. Well, I think I would hold 3% more than I do with this. And a day and a half after the show is over, I'd be able to tell you, I think Stairway to Heaven was maybe the second to last encore. I don't remember what they did in the middle. It was really good. I loved it. And a few weeks after that, I'd say, oh, I did do a Led Zeppelin tribute show. Instead, with these videos, I routinely open up this folder, Marty Stewart and Robert Cray and all these people that I've seen, and I can go back and get all those evenings back, almost the entire concert, because I remember I got this early, and the song that came later, I didn't record it. I've got some stuff from Roseanne Cash. The list goes on. It's
3
like
dozen. Like video flashcards.
Yes.
But I think that is in the world we live in now, that is a good, healthy way to find balance around having this device and then wanting to be present for a concert. So,
but at the same time, I am not allowed to ruin the experience for these people and be, no, this is important because I'm going to look at this video forever. So
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. No, I'm going to do it tastefully. And I turn the screen brightness way down because I can recrop later. But, and I'm
Well,
sorry.
it's etiquette.
Yeah.
It's like gym etiquette. It's like any other etiquette, any restaurant etiquette, anything else.
But I'm not ever going to be the one guy disturbing. I'm usually one of 48 people at any given time that if you're watching the show, ass, will jerk off to her. I wish they'd put their phone down. Well, I just don't want to be the drunk lady going, So.
Who is the artist that you've seen the most live? The most times, do you know?
It had been Gordon Lightfoot.
Okay.
Steely Dan is coming up close, and I'm extremely grateful that they've gone on the road as recently as often as they have. Willie Nelson, fair amount. There for a while, James Taylor he'd been 4 or 5. And I don't have any that are the 10, the 20, I'm the Fish follower or something like that.
Do you, the more times you see someone, do you record less or more?
Well, the recording has only been a little more serious in the last 5 years.
Okay.
I have not always been.
So the person I have seen the most, I'm going to guess it's Eric Church because I've seen him I don't know how many times.
Really?
Yeah.
Eric Church?
Yeah.
What's the draw?
I guess, the only thing I can think of, it's similar to people that like Bruce Springsteen. It's whatever, that there's something about him that speaks to me of growing up or how you're supposed to be as a person or anybody you find admirable in that way. You know what I mean?
Well, that song he did, Springsteen,
right,
is one of the best country songs of that year that I had heard. I just love that.
And so, my brother likes him a lot. We've seen him VIP a lot, and I've recorded little bits, and I've taken some pictures. But one thing I did record, I saw him at the Frank Irwin Center. He if you had the VIP, he did a private show, two acoustic songs privately. And he did a version of Chevy Van, which is on his first EP before his first album came out. And I had never heard that song before. I didn't even know it was somebody else's song. And he did it.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm seeing it live for the first time. And I'm kind of recording like that. And I am glad I have that recording. That's hard to remember. But that was such a really cool moment that I'm glad I got. But I don't do a lot of recording at concerts. I also have a lot of friends that record. So I just go, hey, some of that video you got.
The YouTube videos, when I talk about going to a concert, I get to save it and relive it for myself. But like you in this podcast, there is a public service. You're trying, as someone else who loves Steely Dan and Robert Cray and Willie Nelson, I want you to see what you couldn't see that night. This amazing clip there's another one. I did get an entire song of Marty Stewart. It's called The Pilgrim. And again, I was at this place called the Birchmere in Alexandria, Virginia. And it's like a dinner theater. And at the table where I was, my seat was 7 or 8 feet from where Marty Stewart was playing this. And the second he struck the chord, and I had already gotten the phone going, I was like, oh, this is his encore song. And this is one of the greatest things ever. So I kept it going like that. And it got on Marty Stewart's fan club. And that was a thrill for all these people who didn't get to go to his show to see that particular highlight of the night.
When you go into a venue and you don't have an assigned seat, are you already framing your video in your mind? Like when you're finding where you want to stand to look for some good spot?
No, that's interesting. But if I had to guess, I do gravitate toward the left side because the lead guitarist is more likely to be on the left than the right.
That's interesting.
From my experience. And I do want to watch the lead guitarist more than anyone.
I'm just curious.
Okay, can I share?
Yeah.
All right. I have good friends that I met on the standing next to the bar I say bar, I mean the railing that kept us from being against the stage. I was at a club in Dallas, and I had gone on a random Saturday night, had nothing else going on, solo. Got it, Led Zeppelin. Love Led Zeppelin. This is a tribute band. What the heck, I'll go down and
What's the name again?
Get the Let Out.
Okay, I knew it was something like that.
Great band. But I didn't know that. I'll just go see a Led Zeppelin tribute band at this decent club. Walk in, get to the front, the curtain draw, and I make friends with the two people, man and woman, couple, and we're talking a little bit. We talk for maybe 5 or 10 minutes about how good this is going to be. And during the show, when I'm nearly weeping because they have assembled a copycat, note for note, 7 band members reproducing the sound of Led Zeppelin albums better than anything I could have ever imagined, and the thunder of the bass, and so occasionally we waved at each other, and this is their 75th show or 200th show, and this is my first, and I'm like, this is the most amazing thing. We shook hands afterwards. Facebook, over and over. They sent me a card for their wedding. I send them greetings. That little interaction on Facebook, we are friends.
Who started that conversation at the concert?
I think it was, I may have said something, or they may have said, what, is this your first show?
Let me ask you more of this. That's not the first time that's happened to you?
No.
So, and that happens often, sometimes?
I'd say so, yes.
And I would say probably it's because you initiate that conversation. You take that chance.
Well, you can give me that credit, but they have that same history too, because we are not 3 people standing at the concert like that with our arms folded, not looking at who's around us. So they're open, I'm open, and all 3 of us love people, and it just happens. So I don't think I'm the grand initiator, or they were. We're like-minded people.
Okay, it's going to sound like this is going to be like a real hippie question, but do you think that, like, for some reason, like that, like you kind of get put into these situations? And I would say that it kind of applies to everybody. You get put in situations with people you'd probably be comfortable with, but you have to take some sort of initiative to engage that in like a positive way. And a lot of times we don't, and then you miss those opportunities. Would that be fair?
If I thought you were going in a direction of saying, does the universe put you
fair?
And that I don't think life is working to arrange things for you. There's a hidden hand in the last 5 to 10 years, I absolutely don't believe that. But the individual's actions. So how'd you phrase the question again?
I basically, like, we'll make it a little bit shorter. Like, why do you think y'all were put there to meet? Like, why do you think that happened?
Well, I don't believe we were put there, but they were there. I was there. We talked. And there was a little chemistry.
Because earlier what you said because we weren't standing there with just like our arms crossed. Yeah. And so then that made me think, well, y'all are just very similar people that ran across each other. And the reason y'all connected is because y'all were similar. But I feel like that we pass up opportunities. Some people pass up opportunities to find those similar people just for the lack of not interacting, but you were open to that idea of interacting.
And I undoubtedly interacted with the people to my right. But
it wasn't the same.
No, they weren't blown away by there was something. But these two, we had something going on, and I may have interacted with the people behind me or they with me. So no, I don't go to the grocery store and make a new best friend every day. I don't go to every concert and make a new best friend. Though I did make some good friends at a Morrissey show in London.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, 2-3 months ago, just completely random. That's a good story from my being up in the rafters watching this show, and I got a solo ticket to see Morrissey, and I had known for months that I was going to London. And so I got my ticket, and I was recording because I always do snippets of songs. So I have a 10-minute
small. You're not recording the whole song.
By no means.
Yeah,
but I want to feel the show in retrospect, and it brings it all back to me when I get this little snippet of what he was doing there and what he was doing there. And at the end of the show, I was getting a snippet. Something seemed to change on stage. I noticed security came out and he came closer to the stage. What I didn't know is that he apparently has a shtick of letting the audience physically interact with him.
Like carry him?
No.
Oh.
Stage jumpers coming on, and they get to hug him if they want. If they're so bold, the security is interacting with everybody and watching, and they sort of break the rules and get to jump. Security sort of lets them, and he sort of leans in, and some love and some fandom is exchanged. And then they go screaming off because they got something, and he pulls back, and this goes on 5 or 6 times at the end of the show.
Have you ever seen like that? Anything like that?
Never. It was very strange.
Do you think that that's only the kind of thing that can happen at a concert like that?
Well, what I didn't know is that Morrissey's fan base is fairly rabid. So I had people around me who were singing every word, and I think the guy's fine. I like his music, but I know, oh gosh, she was hit by a bus, or I think his lyrics are sort of quirky. Excuse me, but what I got while I was standing there, sitting there shooting, was a girl broke free and jumped up, and I just thought it was an amazing thing. And later, as I'm leaving, I come around the edge of the sidewalk, and people are gathered around the stage door. And I'm just sitting there because I think if there's a crowd, they must know something, and Morrissey's about to come out the side. And clearly, this is the bus that's going to take him to the hotel. I'm in a great position, so I stay there, phone at the ready, in case he comes out. And there's some two weird sisters. They're high, they're talkative and chatty. And one of them said, I got to hug him. I got to touch him. Oh, and he smelled so good. I said, whoa. That was you? Hold on. I've got this. So we made a connection. I interviewed her on the spot, sort of, and asked her, what was going through your mind and what was that like? And she said what she said. And I made a clip that I put on YouTube and Facebook. And she said, I want it. We go into a correspondence, and she's got a fatal illness coming on, and she's, so we're Facebook friends, and it's really weird. Or her twin sister claimed that this was such an important day because she's got some illness that could kill her.
Oh.
So that wasn't, I didn't dig into that little twist.
Well, she's not having a good day. We'll just put it that way. Something's amiss.
She had an amazing day getting to hug her hero.
Sure. Is there anybody you'd want to hug? Like if you went to a concert and they would allow you on stage to hug them.
To hug? Wow, that is a great question. No. I bet I wouldn't mind hugging Willie Nelson.
That's a good one.
Yeah, Willie's a kind soul. I've met him 3 times, and I'm a huge Willie fan. So in my previous life as a reporter, and then that was one time getting to go onto the bus to talk to him, and one time at Farm Aid, and then in the middle time walking through the Nashville airport and just recognizing that was him. And
what year is that?
Well, it was the year his son had passed away, had committed suicide. So that had been recent enough that I said, I didn't feel like it was inappropriate to walk up and say, Mr. Nelson, sorry for your loss.
So he looks like Willie Nelson at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Because when did his son die? Do you remember? 80s, 90s?
I'm guessing late 90s.
Oh, okay.
If not early 2000s.
Because I was just thinking, Willie Nelson had a whole nother look way back in the day until he transformed into this. And so I was just like, it would be odd if it was the other Willie Nelson.
Well, there have been like 5 Neil Diamonds, 5 Bob Dylans, 5 Willie Nelsons, these people who have such long careers that this Willie Nelson would not recognize the Willie Nelson he turned into, or the guy that was with Waylon, or the guy who's now making fantastic albums as a guy in his late 80s.
So, okay. Tell me if this makes sense. So basically, Willie Nelson had a transformation from when he first got into music into what he is now, right? I don't know about necessarily style, but definitely look and the way he... Okay. Could we say, though, like Steven Tyler has been the same person his entire career?
Frighteningly similar.
Okay. So my question is,
Boy, that is a good one. Steven Tyler has not changed one iota.
right. So is Willie Nelson's, the reason people are attracted to him is like it's a level of authenticity in the sense of like he's evolutioning the way most people normally evolution from one thing to another. You're not the same person that you were when you were 30, blah, 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 right? But Steven Tyler is the same person he's been since he was like 16, I guess, or whatever, right? And so there's a lack of authenticity there. You can't believe that like, oh, you're still this. But I don't know, does that question make sense?
It does, but I'm not willing to go back and completely slam Steven Tyler as a manufacturer. I think he's authentically who he is. And this is a weird take. My father is the same man he's always been. I didn't have the hippie dad and the dad that settled down, the dad that cheated on mom, the dad that was churchy, the dad who went through. I've got my father, and my father was he's true, predictable. Steven Tyler, I would put in that league, and I wouldn't say, wow, I wish he had matured and grown. No, he's just the great Steven Tyler doing Dream On over and over again, doing it well every night.
Okay, so the fact that Steven Tyler has not changed, could that be categorized? It could still be a good thing?
I have a great deal of respect for the fact that there's a consistency there that you've got to respect. And then Willie Nelson and Bob Dylan and some others being so different through patches of their career, that's evolution, and that's cool.
Okay, so let me ask you this. When that same thing is applied to your dad, how do you feel about it?
Fantastic.
You embrace, like, you like that your dad was steady and never changed,
Yes.
and that because like it just felt secure.
Yes.
Yeah.
But everybody's different. So no, I don't think you look at the person who evolved and go, that's a person. This person was always the same. This is a person who's closed off. He didn't. No, my father, and I've got a brother, maybe two, that I would say they are very much.
You do have two brothers, or maybe you do. I'm kidding. Only because I know your brother Jeff, because
Sure.
So that's right. You said maybe two, and I was like, well, is it just Jeff, or is there another one? I'm just kidding.
So there are four of us, and I would say that I, with my older brother, have changed through the years. Have done some. We're not the people we were. And I would say that two brothers are wonderful for them having been very similar to but these people didn't evolve, and therefore they're closed off and somehow lesser than. No, they're wonderful for the fact that they were so consistent.
Was your mom an evolver?
No. My mom.
Where do you think you and your other brother got that from? That wanting to evolve?
I have no idea.
Grandparents? Did you have grandparents that evolved?
No.
Interesting.
Have you evolved?
So when you were talking, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about like being the same and being different. I am a different person than I was before my divorce.
Let me throw a twist in.
Go.
Did you have your hair parted to one side, and you were a little quiet, and you went to church, and you were academic, and now that person wouldn't recognize this person who you are? Or is there a smooth trend line in how you changed?
I think if you were to ask anyone that knows me externally, they would pretty much feel like I'm the same.
Okay.
But internally, like, I'm different. And so my daughter is only going to know this. She's not going to know really this other part unless in moments where I slip back into this old habits, right? So then I was like, well, is it important then that I am consistent, that I am the same, that I maintain, or should I evolve? Or does it even matter? If we like Willie Nelson and we also like Steven Tyler, it's just like, it's a choice of what your preference is, right?
And then as far as yourself, should you be aspiring to hold steady or aspire to evolve? You should do what you're supposed to do.
I don't know if this is going to make sense. If you're like, in my opinion, if you're not changing, you're dying. That's just it. Because the world is going forward. It doesn't give if you want to stay where you want to stay. Like if you are not doing some level of, it doesn't have to be like major things, but just like, I don't know, read a book. Like just stretch yourself to do something. I always say that like in training really older people, like I've had a client die of old age. What really killed him was depression. That's what got him. It wasn't, he was a fairly healthy person. We exercised all the time. He like did things all the time, but he got really depressed at the end. And I think, you know, when you're a kid, the possibilities, it's endless and the hole is giant open. And then as you get older and older, it just closes down and you have to really fight to keep it open. And when your mind gets like really closed down, then, you know, if you see all these people that like live to be like 100 and whatever, most of them are like wild. I mean, they just got like a hobby, something they do. They're into something. They're like, I mean, they are fucking psyched to get up every morning. And I'm like, they're 103. How can you be that pumped to get up? But like something inside of them makes them like that, you know?
Okay, so I'll come back to the parents and the two brothers, and for that matter, the grandparents that raised my father. The commonality between them is that they live authentic Christian lives that they're happy with, that they are true to the code that they bought into, feel no need to deviate, and it keeps them in on a path from which they don't want to deviate, and they're living a perfect life for themselves. A good human life, and I wouldn't sell it short in any way, shape, or form. It is complete. It's not for me. It's not the path that I chose, and to, I think, a similar degree for Jeff, the other brother.
You know, we kind of talked a little bit before we started about like things that I had figured out in doing this, right?
Yes.
And one of the things I had figured out is that there is a lot of value to a strong family structure and relationships outside of your just immediate family, right? And y'all as brothers and sisters and dads and grandfathers and all that kind of stuff, y'all meet and do things as this big family.
Mm-hmm.
And I would find it hard to argue that if your parents hadn't had that hard Christian base, no matter what y'all did, that like that family, that tight-knit family structure you talked about of like, we're okay living in this world, because I mean, y'all are tight as a crew and very, you know, with all the faults and warts of everyone and everything that they do, you're still, and my dad's family's like that. My dad's one of 7 and they're just, the family's huge. But they're all tight. They're all tight. And it doesn't always, you know, there's outliers where people are like, I'm not going to talk to the family or whatever. But for the most part, the big group, I mean, it's like fighting a gang.
Well, okay, and I was trying to follow where you were going with the connection to the faith angle. And yes, well,
what's that? It back to that steadiness. I'm assuming that what that Christian belief gives them is steadiness, right? It makes it feel steady, even though it's not. But it makes it feel steady. And so in believing in that makes you a very solid, it makes you have to have a reason why you think things are right and wrong. You know what I mean?
Okay, but I wonder if in your life, I know in mine, living a life that, for instance, my parents' commitment to their marriage and living by a moral code that kept them within lines, alcohol, drug use, promiscuity, etc., going down a road that was prescribed by their faith. And then my road, which had me zigzagging, a first divorce and a second. Well, I found some stability with the first ex-wife. She's got a husband now and a new husband, and a life that is very unlike my parents' family life, that I would say we have some of that same core stability and a unit. It's a little sloppy and it's not like my parents, but where I'm going with that is, in this day and age, I think we will find different family structures that are not around
you're going to
Sunday.
I mean,
Yeah.
the divorce is rampant. So,
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not, this is not a discount to what your parents are doing, but like in a nutshell, when you don't do shit, you don't have to handle anything. So like they've never gotten divorced. So I don't know, like, God bless my parents. I love you both, but just understand this, that, my parents aren't divorced and I am. So now I've done everything. I've had a child. I've gotten married and divorced. Like I've actually done more because they've never gotten divorced. And so when my divorce like went down, as much as I needed the love and support of them, I was like, nobody understands what I'm going through because your life has been like this. It's been in this, I won't say safe, but it's like, it's pretty solid. It's, it's based like, and now I'm having to deal with something that you haven't had to deal with before. Like I love your advice, but like, I mean, I got to figure this out on my own because you haven't done it. And that's hard. That might be hard for them to hear, but it's not in a rude way. It's just like I have to be hopefully you're raising me to take care of myself. Hopefully it isn't your job forever to take care of me. I don't want to be a burden. You don't want to be a burden to your parents. I mean, like,
okay. Where I heard you going with some of that for a second, it almost sounded like maybe mom and dad had a smaller life and you broke the bounds of some of that. And yes, you brought divorce into it and a complexity and your life got bigger and messier. Theirs was smaller, compact. They can't relate to some of that.
That's how I feel about your relationship with your parents. I feel like do you feel like it's not a similar thing?
I don't.
Okay.
I completely get yours, but mine, for instance, I know it's crazy, but I give them a lot of credit for, there was a lot of warmth and love. And while maybe I didn't turn to them for the fact that I broke from the way they did things.
Wasn't a reflection on your childhood.
No,
yeah.
Or on them.
Or them. Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel about my parents.
Or my life is a little superior because I went on to bigger and messier and wide things. I wouldn't have been able to walk on the straight lines that they took, but they have a good life that I envy. It was not my life.
Right.
So what I really appreciate is that their life conforming to some things that they recognize I didn't choose. There's been no rejection on either side. I don't reject their more contained life, and they don't reject my crazy one that has had different results. I consider it a real blessing that we...
Is a lot of that you getting right with it, though? Like, is a lot of your parents accepting your life, you accepting it? Do you see what I mean?
don't know, but they would have been in a fine place to say, this is not the way we raised you. Huh? We don't recognize you.
Did you feel that without them even telling you, though?
No, I felt the opposite.
Okay, but that's great.
I felt as I gingerly went into these experiences, not the one divorce, but the second as well. And as I became a little more clear about the fact that you don't drink, I do. As I became more open about who I really am, and I don't mean a wild partier. I mean, it's like, I think there's a place for alcohol in my life or some of the things I like. A glass of wine.
Grant.
Yes.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Grant they knew at mid-30s heading into 40,
sure,
which was much more, I am trying to stay in this path.
Please them to it?
In a way, but I also thought that was the path to be in. It's the path I was raised in, so I was zigging and zagging in and out of it.
But that's their path.
Right. So with a kind of unintentional hypocrisy, I was being who I sort of wanted to be, zagging back into who I thought I was supposed to be. And it wasn't until post-40 that I began to recognize a kind of dishonesty and then owning more, actually, this is where I want to be. And then more and more saying, this is who I am, and finding that they were loving. And now I'm completely who I want to be. And they're accepting.
Well, if you didn't already know this, the whole theme of my podcast is be authentic, they'll adjust.
Be authentic.
They'll adjust.
They'll adjust.
Yeah. Right.
Well,
And
you're
so,
lucky when people you love are that way.
well,
I
if they
can
love you,
imagine.
if they love you, if they really love you, they would want you to be the best version, the most complete version of yourself. It's really that simple. Like someone that doesn't want you to be you says something about them, and it should say something about your relationship with them, and you should talk to them about it.
Well, I'm telling you about the parents and me, and I've had the, in a way, good fortune to get educated through life enough to be ready for when a child had to be authentic with me.
That's right.
And some of the carryover things from my Christian faith, I think you could put two and two together real fast about where I'm going with this child who had to come and tell me who they are. And I was changing just slowly and steadily enough, and they were becoming just open enough that we met almost at that point where this child had to tell me this within a week of when I was ready to take it right and when they were ready to say it. You come at me 2 months too soon or it wouldn't have worked, and I would have botched my end of the deal.
It's very important that we change.
Yeah. Oh, you win.
Got him. So we were referring to earlier, talking about like parents and like you kind of breaking away and becoming grand or whatever. I feel like that at some point in your life, not too soon, but not too late, there should be this like moment where you go, oh, this is the part where I break away from my parents and become my own person. Like this is where I need to stand up for myself and what I believe in or what I want to do. And not that their life is bad, but I want my own life. So was there a moment where like you knew with your parents, like this is where I'm going to become Grant? Like this is the moment where I'm like, I'm no longer gonna kind of do this after you'd weaved in back and forth, like a final weave out.
Hey, that's good, because I was already set to say no, and you gave the question enough meat that I absolutely have a date, and that would have been around September of 2019, which is not that long ago. But my brother, the second brother who ran the family business, we had been talking for a number of years. I would at times say, oh, I'm sort of interested in joining you. I sort of hate what I'm doing here, but I think I could be of service. And he would say, we're in good shape. There were, I think, one or two times that he took a little run at me on something and I wasn't, but it came together perfectly earlier in 2019 that he said, got an opening and you'd be a good fit. And I want you to think about it, but we'd love to have you. I said, I don't have to think about it. I'm happy in my job, but I want to be up there with you, the company, mom and dad, hometown. I'm ready. He said, no, think about it. I said, I will, but that's your answer. Perfection. But then as I realized, as I'm packing up and I'm putting a few bottles in boxes and I'm my music and the way I'm going to decorate the house and even like having female friends in my life and some, I'm going to be dating up there. Well, am I going to put on a show? And for instance, if there's a bottle of wine on the counter, am I going to put that under the counter because they may not like that? And I said, I'm not going to do that. And it wasn't some major declaration like in my own head of I'm not going to be a boy anymore. It was just I'm going to be fully
Grant.
And that felt really the level of honesty. I don't feel like I was running around being a complete liar, but when you're in any way shading or feel like you have to about who you are, that's a little less than you could be. And when I felt like the shading completely went away, that's as good as I've ever felt. And then some things about religion and faith. It was around the same time, maybe a little earlier, that I'd begun to say that I just want to make it clear. I don't believe some of these things. And that felt good. And that was even more hardcore than, like, let's say alcohol and let's say divorce. I was making a break from what the family's truly all about, where you're going and why you do what you do. It's about these things that we're living for. And I was pretty clearly saying, that's not what I'm living for. So around a roughly 3 to 5 year period, fully coming into my own, and then having the joy of, on the other side, everyone I care about treating me well. That's who you are, your family, and it's very nice.
I think I think we have at least, okay, we try to have a sense of what we feel like is authentic, whatever that means in your mind. And when you feel that, like you feel like someone's being authentic, there's just a real basic respect, like almost like, wow, it must be cool just to be just you and be cool with it, right? And I think everybody has insecurities, but I think when we meet those people, you're just drawn to them because they're being themselves, like just like you want to be yourself, and the level of you being yourself is kind of, it's artificially judged. You're kind of like, wow, they get to be all of themselves and I can't be all of myself, but you can be all of yourself. Everybody can, right?
Well, you phrased something a few minutes ago. You said that at this point, you really became Grant. You used my name. And I come back to, excuse me, Willie Nelson. And when Willie got out there as a pot smoking, where do you draw the line? And that was Willie. And the ones we knew before then, he was not Willie. He had not, no, he was Willie when he was 6, and he was Willie when he was 25, and he was Willie as a guy wearing a suit with greased back, shorter hair in Nashville with his first marriage. And I think he had a second, third, and he may be in his fourth. And he was Willie before drugs were a significant part of his life, or alcohol, or different guys. But I don't think we get to say with me or Willie or you, when you were about 51 and a half or 40 years old or whatever, you became you. Maturation.
Or it's ever since you were 16 and you were Steven Tyler, you have been authentically yourself that whole time. It is like from the jump. I had a friend of mine come on. He's a performer in Vegas. And I remember when he used to perform close to my hometown in like just bars. He's always been that guy. He's always been a performer from the very start. That's how he got all the way to Vegas. He's always been that guy. I have only become this person recently, right? Within the last, like, probably since roughly around my divorce, right? I've only become what we're talking about recently. Up until that point, you could call it living a lie or changing or evolving to become like this person, right?
So 12 years ago, or 12 years from now, when you become a raving loony Scientologist, are you going to say, oh, no, now I'm me, and before then I wasn't,
So earlier I was like, when I said like I
Tell
won.
me you're not a Scientologist.
No, I'm not. No. Earlier where I said like I won because like I was like people change.
Yeah.
I think we're both right. I'll tell you why. I think once you become as close as you can to your most authentic self, what you're talking about, being you, your evolution slows down tremendously. Up until that point, it's rapidly changing.
Okay.
But to the point where you become yourself, then you kind of start like fine tuning, like the things that you just want to be better at or whatever, to be more of yourself. At that point, you're not changing into yourself. You're just becoming a better version of that. So I would say that like at that point where you become your authentic self, I'm not saying you stop changing, but it's just not the same type of change.
Okay. You mentioned the word divorce, which sounds like it's been central in your life to how you were shaped. I have this belief that a lot of us will come to this like defining moment, maybe there's other moments, but there's going to be one moment
and either you're going to kind of go this way or you're going to go this way. And if you go one way, the moments just become, it just piles on because this one it sent you in the trajectory this way. But at that one moment, if you can find the strength to pull this way, then everything starts escalating the other direction.
It sounds like you're, in a way, would you say even grateful for the changes?
Very.
Okay. Me too. But
I would never live like that again.
Ditto.
I will not live like that again.
And where I have strong positive feelings about, especially my first divorce and the direction it led me, in a way, I at the same time would have a lot of praise and respect for marriages that last any more than 10 or 15 years. Can you imagine? Because I'm the first one was 18. So maybe we did some weaving, but I don't think we did. I think we were trying to.
How old were you when you got married?
29.
See?
Yeah. So, but I should have been fully established and mature at that point. But my wife and I did some things, and we were, and then at the end, it was a breakout, and we went, and we became, where I'm going with this is, can you imagine the people, I don't know about your parents, but mine, at 65 years marriage, and other people, I'm thinking about someone close to me who, they went through these startling changes and remained married. I can't do that. I really, it's a shame that I can look back and be so content with my divorce and its outcome. Some people have a divorce and crater, and I feel for them. But then there are others who went through the suffering and the twisting and then stayed with their spouse and came into some great new vista still with that original partner. I find that amazing.
Okay, so you know how they go, if you have a motorcycle, it's not if you have a crash, it's when.
Wow.
Right? It's the same thing. I think if a relationship lasts long enough, you're going to come to a crossroads. Brothers, mothers, sisters, husbands, dads, whatever, right? And some of them are not, they're not you can't overcome them.
Yeah.
But you're going to come across them and you're going to have to decide. It's kind of like, I'm assuming that this is accurate, the movie Ray with Jamie Foxx, right? Like Ray Charles cheated on his wife like all the time, just constantly cheated on her, and she knew about it, but didn't like stop him, right? That's interesting. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means she loved him more, or I don't know what that means, but all I know is that whatever hopefully she was cool with that agreement. She was really cool. She wasn't faking it. She was like, I'm cool with this. Like, she was really cool with it, because that's all, like, when you talk about your parents and them being married for like 65 years, like, it's just, they're cool with it, I guess. I mean, that's what they're good with, like, and people have to make that decision for themselves.
Okay. Can I tell you my Ray Charles story?
Yes.
Because it is one of and it's almost going to sound like a joke, but one of the 4 or 5 biggest regrets of my life. Have you seen those things on C-SPAN where they talk, it's the the White House correspondents' dinners?
Yes.
Okay. I had the good fortune through a phase in my career where I got to be in a number of those dinners, and we had a table in the back, and our crew was there, and we were all in tuxedos and nice dresses, and George W. Bush was up front, and these were wonderful occasions to be in. You felt the tingling, especially when I would go to the restroom, and I've got this general that I know on this side, and David Blaine was going to the bathroom on that side, and who did I see?
Are you sure it was him? I'm just kidding.
No, it was just.
Did he levitate over there?
He was weird. He was very weird.
Well, I
don't mean weird in the men's room. I mean,
no, but I think that's just who that dude is.
Yeah,
he's authentically himself. I'll tell you that much.
And then, so bumping into people, but the big regret, and you say Ray Charles. At one of these, Ray Charles was the entertainment. He and a band were off in the corner. There's a dais, and they put the music over here. And the events that I'd gone to, I don't remember it was Chubby Checker this year or Katie Lang this year or whatever. But for whatever reason, we had Ray Charles up there. And I remember the regret is that I'm sitting in this room with all these important people and all these tables, and they were all talking. And Ray Charles is clanging away on a piano. I don't think he may have been singing lightly. But I was at near the corner opposite end of the room, and I was vibrating. I was so angry. And I remember the regret is that I seriously wish I had walked out toward the middle of the room, jumped up on one of those tables and said, "Excuse me, that is Ray Charles." And I mean, in my fantasy of how that would have lived out, I would have been swearing. I would have and
escorted.
Yeah, escorted out. Somebody would have had a phone. My career likely would have ended. But in my daydream, I get to relive that moment, and I do it because he was that close. And these people were talking about what they were going to do tomorrow night. And they were talking about the basketball game. And they were talking about their coworkers. That was Ray Charles.
That's crazy.
So now we're going back to say that Steven Tyler is in fact amazing that he was fully formed at 16
or whatever. Probably from like my girlfriend is a musician, and she's a performer. And I think that she's always she's just that kind of person. She's very she's a performer. It's awesome, you know what I mean? But she's always been that person. I don't think she's ever been any different. You know, I don't think she knows any different. That's cool. I think it's cool if you never know any different. But if for some reason something came along to shatter that, to let you know that it wasn't like that, that would be rough. It'd be like when a famous person like has some sort of like mental breakdown, right? Like their life has been this one thing, and then something, something like, I don't know, like R. Kelly or whatever, like this real tragic event that totally takes them down. And then when all these like famous producers in Hollywood got all these sexual assault things or whatever, and like, they would go to jail, and like in jail, they would just become emaciated and just like sickly looking because like their whole thing was just like their whole identity was destroyed, but it was probably all false. It wasn't really real.
Well, and Spectre.
Yes.
Okay, so he was a nutbag all along.
Yes.
And
people knew that.
Harvey Weinstein.
Yes.
Nutbag. And well, Kanye, I mean, I'm guessing the list could go on. These are not people who were the picture of stability. So I'm wondering, there's got to be the political figure or whatever who was truly, okay, if we woke up tomorrow and found out that Tom Hanks had murdered someone in his kitchen 3 years ago, he disposed of the body and...
Would you believe it?
No. But I'm trying to think of who is that person who... Well, there was
Bill Cosby would be my favorite example.
Wow. But then he was revealed to have been all along.
Right.
I mean, going way back to the 60s, the ultimate creep. The fact that he put a lid on it for all that time. But he was not Tom Hanks, creep. Do we know anybody in modern life?
There has to be, but I'm drawing a total blank right now on.
And is it a productive chase?
Mel Gibson.
That's maybe.
Kevin Spacey.
I think I've heard that both of them had shades of all the things that we ended up knowing about.
This is what I think is weird. I think what's weird is what people forget about. You know what I mean? Like if a person, this is probably, it's not a great example, but you know who Kobe Bryant is, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And he passed away. And yet, like, I mean, let's not forget, like, he did sexually assault a girl in Colorado also. right? And at one point he was dropped by Nike, and at one point like nobody wanted to touch him, but he lived long enough to die and be held to this really high standard, which he's a human. He shouldn't die. Like, great. He's Kobe Bryant, all that good stuff. But like, he was still like he's not a god. He was still a normal person that made him a very public mistake that probably some people have never forgiven him for. Same thing with Michael Vick. I can think of a couple of those like that.
Okay, and we could have a little fun putting Kobe and Harvey Weinstein. Put them side by side. Now, let's say
like this is this is the game that me and my girlfriend play. It's called we're gonna play a quick game, and you get to pick I'll let you pick the people. Okay, it's called Who's a Bigger Piece of
Oh, okay. That's not necessarily where I was going, because on the one side, you got Harvey over here, who is clear cut.
Bigger piece of
So let's say Kobe over here did something really bad. Clearly did. And let's say maybe there were a couple other. So we put
Kobe.
We acknowledge his flaws, and there are a few big ones. We also acknowledge real greatness with Kobe.
Yes.
Kobe brought something to the party. So in this mix of real greatness and some very bad stuff, there's an interesting balance. Over here,
okay, Harvey Weinstein was a movie producer?
Yes.
Okay, what were some of the movies that he produced?
Oh, Pulp Fiction. He went through Shakespeare in Love. I didn't like that movie, but it won an Oscar.
I guess my point is like, okay, so we're going to take Kobe Bryant's job, and we're going to say like we have to take Harvey Weinstein's job and go, well, he brought us these great movies. It's kind of like the argument of Michael Jackson. It's like,
and that's what I'm struggling with.
Yes.
But where I'm trying to go on the Kobe thing is, at some point you want to revere Kobe, and you have to acknowledge some bad stuff. So on the Harvey side, Harvey produced some good movies, but Harvey was a wretched human being. Even as he was doing that, he produced his movies based on wretched. I mean,
he made multiple mistakes.
Yes. So what if Tom Hanks killed somebody in his kitchen, disposed of the body, got away with it? He's not killing all the time. Forrest Gump was, and all these other movies he made. And you know what? That one person in the kitchen, they had to go. That's a small price to pay.
For Tom Hanks?
Yes.
I just want to drop some quick notes in. Bill Cosby is currently out of jail.
Yes.
And going on tour, or is on tour.
Oh.
Like, I'm just like, who's going to these shows?
Not going to the show.
Okay. I just wanted to drop that in real quick. Also, I wanted to what's your feelings on Michael Jackson?
Well, still playing some of that music, but yeah.
Can you separate the two in your mind?
I guess I can, because music is a two-dimensional kind of thing, a life interacting with, or anyway, like being a business partner with Michael Jackson, and you were in any way knowledgeable of, or for that matter, help facilitate, because, hey, I'm his agent, and he makes amazing music, and all between the money and the good music he puts out in the world, I got to turn a blind eye to this awful thing that I know he's doing with young people.
Kind of like R. Kelly's agents or people. Yeah.
Right. So no. And am I morally, as the listener of his music, supposed to say, I know what he did? Boy, there was a comedian or someone the other day who went down this road about who we as consumers of the product of some of these rotten people, at what point are we complicit in any way if we wink and say, hey, but Michael's music was awesome? I don't know what to do with some of that. Would you listen to him, or would you say
Michael Jackson?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm of the belief, I think some really bad things probably happened. Let's just put it that mildly. But there's too much smoke not to be a fire. So, but I mean, I own, like, if you want to go like that far, I owned this music before I knew all these things. So it's not like I'm out going out there buying it new and supporting this person. But at the same time, for me, I mean, was Van Gogh a really cool, great dude? Like, I mean, like, was Beethoven like a stand-up guy? I don't know. Like, were these, I mean, you're talking about the times they lived in, stuff like that. Stuff was kind of like backwards too. So like, I don't know if you go, okay, well, all the horrible things they did, what's the level of I'm allowed to like their art? You know what I mean? Like, what is the level I'm allowed to like it? Am I allowed to like a little?
Well, people go back to Wagner along those lines about in any way his support for, I think he was a rabid anti-Semite. I've always been sort of curious. Would I turn off an overture by Wagner because I'm supposed to not listen to it? He was, anyway,
Let's come back.
I can't do it.
Okay. If Kobe Bryant's still alive, right? And if he was still playing basketball, and if this event in Colorado had happened, and you go to a Lakers game to see Kobe Bryant, are you supporting him?
Sure you are.
But you're building his legacy. You're there building, like you're in the process of building his legacy that we talked about was so much better than this one small event. You know what I mean? I think like the moral compass for people is all over the place.
Yeah.
But I believe that like there's, some level of center point with some, little bit of errors and flaws around it. And if we were shooting for that, we'd all kind of see things roughly the same way, or at least be able to listen to somebody else and go, oh, you're in the bubble. Like we're making sense. You know what I mean? But like stuff becomes very black and white. It's not that easy.
Well, you are selling some good stuff. You're trying to put some positive energy out with what you do. So I was curious, as we were in the setup mode of all this, of being curious as to what your big takeaway is from listening to people in this other chair. You've had 40 or more conversations, and what is your takeaway with all these interesting personalities and very different people?
Well, if I had to pick like one thing, just like one thing, is it's not that hard to talk to people if you're a good listener. This is it. I mean, because at the point where you don't understand something, if your response is like, what the instead of going like, what do you mean? Then you've already I've said this before. It's kind of like a Criminal Minds episode. Like you're trying to get inside that person's head of what what you think, and telling them what you think is just that. You're just telling them what you think. But if you want to find some common ground or see how your ideas inside your head relate to theirs, you're going to have to ask some questions. You're going to have to clarify what they're saying. And then you go, what I think I'm hearing you say is this. And if that matches what you're saying, now you're agreeing. But I think that process is so hard for people that they never get to there. You know what I mean? And like I've had people I know, people, you're a brother of one of my clients. So like we're kind of one generation or whatever you call it away. I have people I don't know at all, but I've never had a problem having any conversations with anybody. And that's not because everybody's just being nice because we're in the room. I think it's because I genuinely am trying to talk to people and show that it's like not that hard if you just give some effort.
Okay, but as you've gotten into 40 or more heads, the heads of very different people, is there anything you've come away with that is a head slapper?
Our narcissistic tendencies are and
Okay.
You need to pay attention to that. You need to always be kind of on the lookout for your narcissism to jump right in your head and right out of your mouth or whatever it is, because
and I bet it slips out from the person in this chair rather almost accidentally, does it?
I think that so I recently kind of read this book, and it talked about how, like, we use the term narcissist a lot to describe a person, but most people, narcissists, there's like 4 or 5 different kinds. I don't know what they are. But anyways, but the point being is that there's a small percentage that are actually types of narcissists, like which you could be like clinically, I'm a narcissist. But there's people that have more and less narcissistic tendencies. And your ultimate goal should be to have less.
And you're saying that a common factor is almost everyone who sits here has some
But I do too. Like there's constantly times where I look back at the and I'm like what the you're so full of like what not that I don't believe what I'm saying, but just like it just feels like sometimes it does. Watching it back, it doesn't feel like authentic, and that kind of goes. I'm like why do? And maybe it's because I've said it before. And sometimes if I've said things before on the podcast and I repeat them, sometimes it doesn't feel authentic. But then, like in a small part of my mind, I'm like, man, how's a comedian feel after telling the same joke thousands of times and trying to make it sound like the first time you've ever told it to an audience?
But ideally, you don't sit there listening to yourself during the editing process and enjoy the heck out of it.
Not really.
Okay. Well, if you did, that would be a kind of sick.
There's moments where I'm like, that was good. Good joke. Like good joke. That was a good joke. But like other than that, but I'm not looking to set myself up. It's always about who I'm bringing on. You know what I mean?
Do you remember the experience when you were 6 or 8 years old and heard your voice on a cassette recorder the first time it came back in your ear?
Oh yeah.
And what was that?
I was like, who's that?
Right. It's not me.
And weirdly, when I first started doing the podcast, I used to just like hear my voice inside my head, like talking in the very beginning. Not when I was recording, like I'd just be doing stuff and like my voice would just be inside my head. And I think I was reviewing my voice so much, it was just like in my head. It was weird. And then it kind of went away. And now I'm very able to just like separate it. It's like this is this and that is that. But it was like a real weird like thing. And that made me feel like, am I full of like, what are you like, But then the more I was like, no, this is like, this is something like you could ask my mom whenever I was a kid, I carried around their camcorder like this huge and we'd make videos. All my projects for school were videos. Like, you know what I mean? Like everybody, like they wouldn't want to write an essay. And I was like, can I do a video and like write a short essay? Like I'd bargain to do videos because I just knew I couldn't, I think I had problems reading, might even have like some sort of reading problem, right? My eyesight was probably already poor. I just couldn't concentrate, but I could make videos.
Well, but I'm 58 and you're
46.
Okay. So you had that comfort level with video. It wouldn't have been in my life like that. So I messed around with the cassette. But in my time as a TV news reporter, working in very, very small towns, being that dope that's standing in front of the burning building or in the bad weather, stereotypical local news. The first 8 or 9 years of my life, the guy I was playing back when I had a microphone in my hand and I had to chop up tape, for that first 8 or 9 years, I know I'm this way, but then the TV guy was different. And it took almost a full 10 years to find a voice that other people would have said, you sitting there is the same guy. See, before then, it was a kind of Walter Cronkite imitation. I'm supposed to sound this way.
You became more yourself.
So I wonder if every other person who doesn't, they're not podcasting, television, to YouTube. They're not messing around with themselves like that. Well, then again, we have these phones in our life, so everybody sees versions of themselves coming back on home movies and things they've recorded.
Are you critical of the things you record?
Less so now.
Less so now from when?
Oh, I would have been brutal in those first 10 years because that guy was a complete dope and had no business being on camera.
Did any of that correlate with like you kind of breaking away from your parents and all that kind of stuff?
No.
I've just been like a step along the way, I guess.
No, I, as a guy who had tremendous stage fright and growing up, chose the career that was worst suited for my tendency to not be able to speak in public, etc. But I desired that role, and it took about 8 years to fit into it. I was bad at what I did for that long.
So how I like to usually wrap this thing up is, the whole podcast is about balance and moderation. And so how you take care of yourself so that you can be the best person you can be for everybody else. I know you're an exerciser, right? And did you have something happen that made you catapult into exercising?
Yes, absolutely. I had always enjoyed some tennis in the afternoon. With some guys, and I had been doing some stuff. But at the period when I was heading into my divorce, I was on a college campus, and there was a therapy session we were undergoing, and it was either how are we going to get into this or just the ins and outs. I don't know if it was a last chance, but it was a discussion as we were about to head into mediation. But it was really rough. And I had a tennis date scheduled with a good friend of mine, again, on this college campus. And I brought my gym bag with me to cross out. So I went after this debilitating, crushing session with my current wife, soon to be ex, and my my 4 young children. My life is crumbling, and we've just had a really brutal discussion, and the therapist, like they're going to do at 5 minutes till the hour, well, our time is up, and I can barely speak, and I don't mean from weeping. I mean I'm just inside out. And I leave from there and go to the men's room. On the way out the door of the therapy area, I change into my shorts, get the tennis racket out of the car, and I go into the tennis court, and somebody says, "Hey, Grant, how's it going?" And this gibberish came out of my mouth. And it was...
Did you contemplate? I mean, did you recognize you were speaking gibberish, or did that person tell you?
No.
You knew you were?
As it came out, I realized that I had not been socially normal in any way, shape. I said something that didn't make sense, the words, and I dropped the tennis ball to do the practice swing with Greg, my friend, and he hit the ball back, and we did that about 10 times. And after 5 minutes, we had a sweat going. We talked to each other for a second and within 10 minutes after that, I was laughing about something, that bad shot that he did. And I realized at that moment the power of physical exertion to overwhelm. I didn't need to take a pill. I didn't need to go off and cry for 3 days. That physical exertion overwhelmed the depression and making the connection to having the power to sweat it out. I was forever changed. And anytime I run into any kind of hard stuff, go sweat. Some people would say if you go to bed and sleep it off and you wake up the next morning, everything's fine. But this was to me, and I've never had to be medicated since, and there's a place for medication. But for me, I made the connection: exercise.
In that book I was talking about, The Tools, he talks about that you will feel 85% better if you just eat well, sleep well, and exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're battling with some level of depression, if you just do those 3 things, you're going to feel 85% better.
Big believer.
I mean, and these are just like the basic things you need to be like a good, like, whole, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And it's a real good starting point. And you're a big music guy.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So I'm assuming that music is a way that we've already talked about the concerts and stuff, but music is a way that you kind of relax and decompress and stuff.
Yeah. And I can get lost in a Steely Dan Asia, and there are a number of Willie Nelson albums that are kinds of touchstones, and there's a piece by Tchaikovsky that Van Cliburn did when he won remember hearing about him winning in Russia, a contest around the Tchaikovsky's Concerto No. 1. So there are a few. Don't you have pieces of music like that?
Oh, yeah. I've just recently, I only do it on days where I'm kind of doing like traditional type lifting, which would be like, oh, I'm just doing back today, or I'm just doing legs today. I listen to classical music the whole time.
And why?
Because I can focus. There's no words. It's just my thoughts and what I'm doing. And when you're doing like really kind of concentrated, isolated exercises like that, it really I feel like it helps my focus.
But not AC/DC or Ozzy to give you the adrenaline shot?
It depends. Like A lot of times when I'm doing like my warm up and stuff, I listen to a lot of rap music. When I
Uh,
walk on the treadmill, I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
okay.
But like that mood can, like if I've said this before, like if I find that I'm listening to an audiobook, but I'm thinking, like I'm really not listening. I can't get this thought in my head, or I'm processing, or even they say something and my mind starts to go off. I just turn it back on to like classical music. I turn the book off and just try to think. Like I try to listen to what I'm kind of feeling or into that day or whatever. And sometimes it starts and goes a different direction. It just depends.
Yeah.
I would say my moods have a big effect on what I listen to. Do your moods affect what you listen to?
Oh, I listen to anything all the time, and no. With iTunes, the Apple Music thing, I shuffle. I used to be an album guy, so you start the album and get through the end, and I love that. And when Apple Music came along, and I've got 16,000 songs and growing all the time, you just click, click, and you never know what you're going to get. And I don't think Apple Music uses any algorithm to say, well, it looks like you're enjoying a lot of country songs. We're going to string together country.
Right.
I don't know what's coming. And it's sort of like that.
I think that for people that really enjoy music and use it in a way of like, I don't want to say meditative, but relaxation and stuff like that, like Apple Music, Spotify, like us having all these streaming services has been like, I mean, just like an explosion. Because even when I first had my first iPod, you still had to buy all the songs and you had to get them on there, even though they were portable. And now it's just like everything. And it's so cool.
Well, do you remember when some of them, like a Rolling Stones album, or there's something about the Rolling Stones in general? I went through a period of discovery and loved them. Well, now there's so much of this, every bit of Aerosmith, Rolling Stones, AC, anything you've ever wanted, you're getting it all the time. So now there are a lot of Rolling Stones songs that I remember gave me a jolt right to the center. And now if I hear Let It Bleed one more time, I'm going to scream.
You have to be careful.
Yeah.
You can wear out songs like really fast. I have a playlist and I've just recently renamed it. It used to be called my pre-podcast playlist, and it was the music I'd listened to before the podcast.
Yeah.
But then I had a guest come on and he called it his Vibes playlist. So then I changed my name to my Vibes playlist. So my question is, do you have a Vibes playlist? Do you have a playlist that because like it's this one playlist that they're literally, I just can't get tired of these songs so far. Every once in a while, somebody will drop off. Like I'll just go like, I just can't listen to this anymore, but very seldom. They are just songs, and they're like all different genres, all different eras, all different times. And it's really, there are a bunch of like just really random stuff on there.
The Steely Dan catalog, that I cannot get tired of.
Really?
Yeah. I can randomize all 8 or 9 albums, and that's, go, go, go. But nothing else like that. Maybe Dire Straits Communique. There's the first album that's classic, but I like the second album more. But no, you're a playlist guy, and I don't have any playlists.
I also think that is, and not in a negative, like it's like an age thing, right?
Right.
Because I think that people younger than me, like I have an appreciation for albums, like full albums, the way an album lays out, the way, the way the whole thing was presented, how good the songs are, the deep cut, you'll say, but there is none of that anymore. It's just singles and playlists, right?
Yeah.
And so, like I was talking about that playlist that I made that was from my childhood. There's a lot of full albums on there because my mom and dad would listen to full albums of all those songs, right? But then there's just like full artists, so like all like Willie Nelson's like essentials or whatever's on there, whatever.
Yeah.
So most of those songs that I know,
Well, back when your mother was playing that music for you and she put on Carly Simon's Greatest Hits and Fleetwood Mac Rumors and Paul McCartney Band on the Run, these were albums that were Steve Miller, Fly Like an Eagle. They were start to finish. Even the song that wasn't the hit cut was still, track 4 on side 2. That's a fantastic song all by itself. Now, I routinely, the new album that comes out by so-and-so, I save track 1, 2, and 7, chuck the rest.
I would say probably like Eric Church, Kanye West, trying to think of somebody else. those two off the top of my head. I don't want to lay those too long. Like if they put out an album, I'll listen to it top to bottom. I'll just like, and I'll listen to it more than once and just really listen to it.
Okay, I do that with Miranda Lambert.
Okay.
But Bruce Springsteen came out with a covers album. I saved 3 tracks.
Well, because whereas like, it's cool to hear Bruce Springsteen do covers. Like if I'm gonna listen to Bruce Springsteen, why don't I just listen to Bruce Springsteen? You know what I mean?
Right.
Why am I listening to his ass do covers? You know,
I want to go back to Darkness on the Edge of Town.
There's like I forgot. I think it's the soundtrack for the movie I Am Sam with
Beatles covers.
Beatles cover. It's all Beatles. And it's done by all these different people. It's amazing. It's an amazing album, top to bottom. But those were all. It's not Bruce Springsteen isn't doing all of them, right? It's a different person doing them, and so like you're getting all these different versions and stuff like that. I do like whenever like Brooks and Dunn did this, where they had new artists come in and sing their old songs with them. I thought that was really awesome.
Okay, and did you hear the Bee Gees version of the same thing?
Oh no,
Barry Gibb brought in others. Didn't work.
Oh,
not as well.
Well, because they ain't Brooks and Dunn, man.
And that is a good album.
I mean, I don't. So I took my mom to see Brooks and Dunn and Reba in Vegas, right?
What a show!
Yeah, and like, I mean, I have this soft spot for Reba and her corny jokes and like how her whole shtick of what she does. And she does that the whole time that the, show's going on. And of course, like, Kix Brooks is like, well, somebody just noticed me. And then Ronnie Dunn's like, can we get off this fucking stage? Right. Like, it's like, no one
was she hogging?
No, it was just more of a thing that like, I got the feeling, I don't know, this is probably totally wrong, that Reba's like, hey guys, I mean, y'all are good together and we can do a show together and we can make some cash. Can y'all just get along? Can y'all just do this?
Sure.
And then they get out on stage and then Ronnie Dunn's kind of like, I got to sing all these fucking songs. And then he's in the back going like, I should be singing these songs. Like this should be like my thing. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there's always tension between those two. And if they would just embrace who they are, and maybe they already have, and I'm making all this stuff up in my head.
If Kix Brooks had just realized he is the
songwriter,
John Oates of that band.
Yeah.
There's the Daryl Hall, Let Him Shine, and you are the, and he never.
It's hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're not equals.
Well, I mean, that's just.
Simon and Garfunkel, they never figured that out either.
Well, I don't.
Garfunkel should have known. Paul Simon, if Paul Simon says jump, I should say how high.
Well, you know what I started thinking? I was like, the only people that figured it out was the Judds. But are you going to tell your mom like, hey, you can't be front fiddle. This is my show. Well, before we go, anything else? Like, are you a reader? Do you have any book recommendations?
No, I'm a book buyer.
Nice, good.
I like to
buy books?
Have stacks of books that will be read.
Yeah.
And I like to open them and begin them. And then buy another book.
Well, when I say read, I do audiobooks. Audiobooks have like saved my life. Like it's, I'm over the stigma of like, I'm not a reader. I'm like, I'm taking in the information.
Well, my brother Wyatt and I were talking about this the other day. And apparently the way we were taught to read, and you would have been reading out loud, he said he was going to the store and blah, blah, blah. And my brother Wyatt and I agreed that to this day, we are reading that book. I'm getting every word and I'm hearing the voice in my head. I'm reading about 5% faster than I might speak it or hear it said.
Mm-hmm.
And real reading, if I could have the superpower in the next life of doing what I've heard some people do, turn, flipping those pages and absorbing the content, snapping the shot and getting it into your brain. I have a book. I'll finish a book after 2.5 years and say, look, I finished a book.
But I think I'm guessing it might just be the way you're wired, because I would think we're very similar in that way. Like you love music. I love music. You're just probably more auditory. Like if you like listening to the podcast, I mean, it's like listen to a book, But
are you flipping pages? Are you reading like this?
But like when to your point, when I would read a book and flip pages, like when we read in school, I would just like, each kid would read a paragraph. Like we'd just go down reading a paragraph. And all I do is I would count the kids and find my paragraph. And then I would practice my paragraph while the other kids were reading.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
reading's never been fun for me. And I don't know why any of that is. All I know is that I'm done. I will say this, in doing the podcast and then writing scripts and kind of coming up with themes and questions and all that kind of stuff, I've been writing more, and it's made me enjoy reading more and being a better reader. So, just a practice of it. Anything else? Anything else you do?
No.
Go to concerts. You're a big concert goer, right?
Yeah. Editing videos.
Yeah. It's
and
fun, right?
I'm guessing you have that thrill as well, but they've put, if I just use iMovie,
Mm-hmm.
and they put this rudimentary software that a third grader can use on our little laptops that I can use on a plane, and they're more powerful than what I was using in TV news operations 20 years ago. And you can bring images together and weave audio and put on graphics. You can make the next best thing, your personal movie. That's a power to me that is second to none.
Well, it's very cool to make art. And I think where people get stuck is they go, my art sucks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not good at making art. That's not the point. Being good at it isn't the point. The point is making art. You know what I mean? Now, if it's not good, like if it's not something people gravitate towards, it doesn't mean it's like not good. It just means that, like, I don't know, they're just not gravitating towards it. And good might be relative. I mean, art's so weird like that, I guess.
Well, the other thing I think there's a value in is doing.
Yeah,
and
that is the value.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't think my videos are the greatest or my guitar plunking around is the greatest, but it is better than watching 6 hours of TV and 3 hours of gaming, which, bless your heart, if your thing is taking it binging shows, but I know there are people who make a lot of their life is the game controller and I don't mean to sound judgy, but I would much rather know I'm weeding my yard and playing the guitar and cooking edition that, doing.
Well,
I think and they're making it so easy to do more and do it better and do it with tools and learn from other people.
YouTube University.
Yes. I want to fix my mower. I don't have to take it to the guy down the street.
There's 15, 20 videos of a guy fixing his
mower.
mower.
Will not start, crank not moving. Right. There's a guy like you who put his phone up on the edge of the workbench and showed you how to fix that.
Yeah. It's great. The sharing of information like that is great. Well, did you have a good time?
Hey,
no, you have to give me a hug. We can shake hands, but you have to give me a hug as well. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.